snacks.
The reason why we're here, again, is because this panel, Being Comfortable Being a Geek, this is a panel that we do at multiple cons a year. We do it because we know what it's like to grow up being geeks. We know what it's like to be ostracized and or pointed at or to feel different or whatever. And we have found that from doing what we do, coming to conventions, talking to people, meeting people at tables, hanging out with people who are like-minded and so forth, that there are a lot of people who've been through the same thing, but not necessarily in the same way. And that conventions tend to be like the safest haven, right? It's like the place where you can go, where everybody's there because they love the same things. And we found that by doing something like this, it allowed us not only to allow ourselves to help ourselves get better and understand what's going on with other people better, but to help other people out there do the same thing. So that's why we're here. And when we do these panels, we always try to bring someone new to the panel with us because we want other people's experiences to be heard and for people to have the opportunity to see what someone else is going through or how they went through it and how they dealt with it or how they didn't deal with it and haven't dealt with it and maybe how we can help each other do that thing. So everybody here is going to have a story to tell. They're going to have something about them that we're going to learn about, we're going to talk about, but this isn't just about us up here. It's also about you there. And this is an open forum. So we're going to want to talk to you. We're not going to force you.
I don't mind.
I'm just messing with you.
It's just on the spot, and I'm not prepared anything.
I just know it's cool. We're also here to have some fun, right? Like there definitely can be some serious topics, but we're gonna have a good time. There are definitely stories that there are people up here that can tell you that are ones I won't necessarily want you to hear, because they're gonna be funny to you, not necessarily funny to me. But that's what we're here for. So, what I'd like to do is, I'm going to start at the end with Stephen. See, I just put him on the spot. Did you see that?
I did see that.
Just put him on the
I'm ready
spot.
for it, though. I'm ready for it. Yeah.
So Stephen, before we get into it, I want you to just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do, better than I did like 6 minutes ago.
Okay.
Just give them the spiel. Give them like the 30-second elevator pitch about you and Auditorium and what you do.
I'm an anime fine art artist, if that makes sense, traditional artist. So basically what I do, and what separates me from a lot of other artists, so I basically compete with CGI references. And I'm sure all of you know what CGI is. So as a traditional artist, I have challenged myself to paint better than the computer, and I've achieved it. In fact, I found out that there's a bracket over in Europe for artists like me. They're called hyper-real artists. So what I did was, with that, so basically I started out traditionally doing comic book covers as a kid, not liking the way they were doing Wolverine, Professor X, or a lot of the other characters that we all grew up with. So from there, I was introduced to color pencils, from color pencils to markers, from markers to the airbrush. And it was often running for me. So basically from that, I started out in '93. So I've been painting all the way up until now. I've mastered the airbrush, and I've worked on other mediums as well, so I kind of do a jumble of a bunch of different things, so no one can actually figure out what I did to create the masterpiece that everybody either loves or commissioned me to do.
Yeah.
So that's put me in a position of, and I'll try to blow through this real quick.
That's cool. I just have a quick question, because you say you started in '93.
Yes.
Raise your hand if you were born after '93. Oh, Hey, listen.
Wow.
So here's why I did that. Because again, one of the other things about this is that we have found that this community is super diverse, not just in race or color, but it also is in age and sex and creed and religion. It's everything. And even amongst us, like the three of us are together almost all the time. We give Jokes a hard time because he's like 10 years younger than we are. And his fandoms, we hate him. We hate his fandoms. We respect the fact that he loves them, but we hate him.
You can tune in every Tuesday to see us do that.
Oh,
pretty
you
much.
can. But also, like, my daughter is on the panel. She's on the panel because she didn't really have any choice but to grow up a geek.
I'm not upset about it.
That's good. I appreciate that, because if you were, this is probably the worst place for you to
So how do you feel about that? And can you please listen to her?
Thanks, Marcus. Yeah, so auditorium, again, Stephen, I want you to tell people, again, you said 93.
Yes.
Things were different in 93 from what they're like now. But have you always been a geek?
No.
No. When did that change for you?
Comic books?
Comic books did, how?
And Saturday morning cartoons? Well, these kids probably don't even know what Saturday morning cartoons are.
I know what they were.
Yeah.
I was born in 1983.
So you know Saturday morning cartoons? You're one of us.
Those were good old days.
You're one of us.
Poor children.
Indeed. Okay.
No.
You
You have to
flipped.
wake up on time.
I did.
And get in front of
You got the TV guy scheduled in front of you. See what it is.
Yeah, eat your cereal if your mama let you eat it in the living, which was rare. If you got a nugget, you can sneak one bowl, but you have to get in front of the TV on time, you know, everything's just right.
On time.
And it would be back-to-back different cartoons. Not like Cartoon Network, where you watch Teen Titans Go 14 times in a row. It was different cartoons, y'all. It was crazy.
There was different stuff. Yeah. Yes. It was a different kind of diversity, but it was diverse.
Right.
It was, for sure. Marcus, talk to me a little bit about you, man. You know, again, both of these gentlemen have tables downstairs. I highly recommend that you go and you check both of them out at their tables. They're extremely awesome at what they do. But we've grown to become friends over the years by hanging out at conventions, at coming to see each other and so forth. And so we're con friends, we're con family, which is a thing that happens in places like this. So Marcus,
Yes.
give them I want the 7-second
Yeah.
elevator pitch.
7 seconds?
Yeah, 7 seconds.
Yeah.
And go.
I was born. No, okay. I've been illustrating professionally for over 20 years. The short of it is a lot of people believe that I was somehow born drawing. Well, that's a bald-faced lie. I was terrible for a long time. I got really, I never cared about being good at art. I just cared about drawing because it made me feel good. I thought I wanted to be an animator at one point because I saw cartoons. Then I learned how much work goes into animation, and I said, that's not me. So, I'm a character artist by trade. I didn't know that until I was in the mid-20s. Another artist and a professional artist had to tell me. But yeah, man, I started, my very first job I was working with Pop-Up Girls. I was drawing comics for them. I had never had any professional work before that. So I got really, really lucky because the woman that cooked me up, I ended up marrying her. But her uncle was the art director for Cartoon Network in Atlanta. And she was like, you should be my uncle. That's a weird thing to tell another man. And we literally went to her house. I was working at the movie theaters, but you know, I was drawing on napkins and stuff. Go to his house, I show him a little raggedy sketchbook. He's like, I think I can get you some work. I'm like, I think I would like that. It was the best money I'd ever seen in my life. I was getting like $3,000 for 3 pages. It was phenomenal. I kept all the receipts too, just in case I didn't tell my children's children. You know, I used to get paid a lot. But yeah, at this point, I'm doing comics. I just started working for Sony Picture Animation Studio. A lot of cool things, but I'm still loving characters. That's what I draw. If you follow me online or something like that, you'll see that stuff. And I just like seeing stuff that the industry doesn't want to show. And that's usually, characters that they lie to you. Oh, hey, there's something. That is T'Challa, that's Black Power Ranger. That doesn't exist anywhere but in my mind. So that's kind of what I do, and I'm still doing it. I've been doing it for 20 years. I'll probably still do it for another 20. But I'm gonna hire some people, so I don't have to do it all the time.
My man. All right, so look, now let me work. I mean, my man at the table. Marcus, have you always been a geek?
So that's a weird question for me. I can honestly say yes, but I never prioritized. It's weird because as an artist, man, I'm okay with being in my own world.
Sure.
So whether or not someone approved it, I didn't care.
Okay.
So I was video game head. I love Sonic. There was no merchandise that my mom.
Wait. I just want
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Mario
Yeah.
or Sonic.
Listen.
Pick one. I just
Sonic had music that on different levels. You know what I'm saying? So I had, Green Hill Zone. I had Tuskegee Heirs playing. Listen, you could just let the music play on the.
okay.
Yeah, Sonic for me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the kind of stuff to where there was no geek hood. I had 3 older brothers that taught me how to fight, taught me how to, be cool girls, and also, they introduced me to video games and, Star Wars. So
Dig it.
yeah.
For everybody in the audience,
Yeah.
is there anybody who feels like there is a significant difference between a nerd
Yes.
and a geek?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Raise your hand if you think you're more of a nerd than a geek. All right, listen. We're all family here.
I think so.
It's been hot. I've been working all day, sweating under arms. Like you can put them up. Like I just I mean, like
We're not
all
gonna
right.
judge
So
you.
there's a few of you who feel more nerd than geek. Everybody else, raise your hand if you feel like you're more of a geek than a nerd. Okay. So let's talk about
I don't
what the
know.
difference is between the two. Jokes. Still his microphone.
So his microphone?
Yeah.
Mine's.
Sure.
If you had to talk about what the difference is between the two, what would you say is the difference between a nerd and a geek?
So, a nerd, like the way we've always seen it.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
A nerd is one that was more of like a book smart type of person. So, just studying, looking stuff up. Like back in the day, they would fall under that classification, having the pocket protector, the glasses with the tape on it. Like that was the stereotype, I think, way back when. Versus a geek, you are knowledgeable, but you have like say how you have a history buff. Like I think that'd be the best way to say it. But it's that's kind of the similar things for it. But a geek, you know all these things about Dragon Ball Z, Star Wars, Sonic, and things like that. So there's like that small perception difference than anything else.
Okay. So the nerd might be a little less socially inept. Is that
That's a good
kind of weird? Is that is that a weird thing? Is that anybody have social anxiety here? It's a lot of y'all, but thank you for raising your hands in such a social setting. I appreciate that.
I'm a recovering one. I
Are
think
you?
I overcame it.
You kind of have to, like you're at a table.
Before I did these, I used to be shy. I remember.
Yeah.
I know I shed that whole thing of social anxiety. I still don't like to be the center of attention per se for a long time.
Yeah.
I can retire to the corner and start drawing, no problem. But I used to be. Conventions have really helped in a way to say I love people
Yeah.
and I love passionate people.
Okay.
So I can talk to anyone, but in this setting, it is like you said, it's okay to be.
More family.
Yeah, like, oh man, I really, and hey, I love that too.
Yeah.
That's okay to love that. So yeah.
Sin,
Yeah.
are you a geek or a nerd?
Geek.
Geek.
Yes.
You can put the mic a
I
little.
was worried.
Yeah, you can.
I'll give it-
I don't want to touch another man's mic.
I'll give it back to you.
More geek than nerd.
Yes.
Are you comfortable?
Very much so nowadays.
What does nowadays mean?
Just as you grow up and you go through life and you go through experiences and all that kind of stuff, you learn to just say, I'm good. I don't need other people's approval or for the things that I love and things that I'm passionate about. I'm just comfortable with the things I care about.
You're there now.
Yep.
Everybody here comfortable?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Pretty much so? I like that.
That's a little shaky.
There's a couple who aren't saying yeah.
Little wobblies.
If you're not comfortable, of course I'm getting ready to put you on the spot. If you're not comfortable, just give me like just a little hand raise. Just a little hand raise. Okay. So I want to talk about some of the things that make someone uncomfortable. But before we do that, Zana, are you comfortable as a geek?
Yeah.
I have identified you. Like I know you're.
Both of them.
You're both.
Personally, I think I'm a little bit of both.
You are a mix of a nerd and a geek.
Yeah. I like school.
Okay.
I like learning.
Sure.
So I'll subscribe to the term nerd, but I also like being places like this. I like just about any avenue of geekdom that you can think of. I've dabbled in, I've touched, I've enjoyed at some capacity. Some have stuck more than others, but I'd say both. And I'm comfortable with that.
So I personally found that when you're a geek, you're generally a geek about very specific things. There's a part of you that wants to know all of the minute details about something. Like, you put yourself in a position to be a subject matter expert, not just amongst your friends, but with other people. So, Sim, for us as a group, like, that's our anime geek. Like, that dude knows anime through and through, right? Like, I'm super surprised when somebody says something about an anime, he doesn't know. Jokes is our wrestling geek, right? Like, wrestling, we have wrestling fans in the building? You are the only one clapping. Listen, nothing against it, I'm just saying. So, what I found is that I know people who are sports buffs. See, part of the problem is that we give a different kind of name to the people who are geeks, that are geeks about the things that aren't the ones that we're super excited about, right? So if you love anime, or you love Star Trek, or Star Wars, if you're into cartoons but you're an adult, you know what I'm saying? There you are, right, y'all are my people, right? But like, so if you're into those things, you're labeled differently than someone who is a history buff, right? Because like, I know I had to learn about the War of 1812, but if you ask me details now, no sir. No sir. That's not a thing. But there are people who absolutely enjoy it. And there are people who might consider someone like that a nerd because they're a history buff, but we give them the word buff. And if you're like me and you play games or you play D&D, buff is a good thing. You get a buff, that's a good thing, right? So if someone is a sports buff, right? Sometimes we even go as far as to say something like a sports aficionado. Why do we just switch languages?
Right.
Why does that become a thing, right? So realistically, if you're into anime, you can call yourself an anime aficionado.
Myself, I know.
Well, listen, why not? Listen, we can rewrite your resume tonight.
Let's do it.
You know what I mean? That's, I think, a lot of times what the difference is. It's just wordplay, right? Like, and we've started to embrace geek. Like, I embrace it. Like, I'm so comfortable.
I think there's something that we're missing to make sure the people that were born after 93 or 94. So listen, there was this movie called Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it.
If you haven't seen it, it's okay. Listen, so back then, what happened? There's something that happened culturally in the last 20 years, at least, where women are okay with men being nerds. They became nerds too, and they're not to say they weren't there before, but it's culturally become acceptable.
Yeah.
And women are like, I like comics too. You better stop lying. What kind of comics you like? For real? You want to get married now or tomorrow? Culturally, and if you watch Revenge of the Nerds, for you young folks, if you see it, the cast is primarily men.
Yeah.
They are male, nerds. They are bullied for it. They are, antagonized for it, everything. And of course, the young lady, who's the love interest, is interested in what to do, but she doesn't even know how to approach the concept. It's hard for him to talk, all that stuff. So as a culture, when you have more and more, relationships starting that align with that kind of interest, saying, no, I love it too.
I agree.
You have a whole new paradigm of, it's okay for me to be myself? You like video games?
What?
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 You play, MMOs? What? And then, it's way different.
You can't have five right now.
That's what I'm going to say. Before that time, it was like you had to have a man cave. We still have to have a man cave, or a cave to yourself, whatever. To then say, I'm going to separate my relationship from my passions. And then when I'm in my relationship mode, I have to then put
Be
on
somebody different.
a whole nother helmet to say, oh no, I only care about stuff regular people care
Is
about.
there anybody up here on the panel
Yeah.
who ever felt like they had to hide their passion, who they were?
Yes.
Okay, talk to me about it.
As a female geek as well, I think that there's a lot of gatekeeping as well
Yeah,
for our
sure.
female geeks. And that's one of the worst things. Like, that was the hardest part. I've always been comfortable enjoying what I enjoy and liking what I like. But, it was, in second grade, my favorite thing to do was read my Spider-Man encyclopedia. All day, every day, in between lessons. Like, that was my thing.
That might be my fault.
But I bought that with my own money at the book fair, and I loved it. But it was so hard because I'd be reading it, minding my business, and all of a sudden there'd be these guys like, you don't know what that is, you don't know what you're reading, tell me this, that, this, tell me everything there is to ever know. And so that was really hard, and for a while I stopped reading it. I stopped bringing it to school because I didn't like the harassment.
Yeah.
And so that was like the really big thing for me, was not only being comfortable being a geek in general, but also being a female as well.
Yeah.
Being a woman and being okay with that too.
Why ain't you telling me?
I was about to say,
I'll whoop somebody.
She always be at the school next to school.
But yeah, that's another way that.
Anybody else have that same kind of thing? Is anybody else? I mean,
I would say for me, like, there was a
Mike.
small, I kind of talk about that, but there was a small part, like, for middle school for me.
Yeah.
There was a transition, well, of course, like in elementary school, like, I was playing Pokemon, like I was playing on my Game Boy. But when I got to middle school, this was that transitional place where I was already playing trumpet, so I was in the band. But
any band geeks? Any band geeks?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I was playing trumpet, but then I started playing basketball. So I kind of fell into where I had two groups of friends.
Yeah, 'cause that's not allowed. Like, you can't do both.
Oh, I made it. Hey, mom's made sure it worked. It was like, you want to do both? I'm gonna make sure it works. But you had there was those two groups of friends that I had. So the one group, I'm over here playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's like the other is kind of like, you play that card game or whatever that is. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty dope. It's like, I don't know if I can get into it. So that was kind of that back and forth after a while.
Yeah.
But then it was like I started to have this bridge between the two groups of friends. We started finding these mellow grounds. So like, let's say this is gonna sound NBA Live. Let's use that. But,
Anybody know what that is? Some of y'all, they ain't had one of those in a while, so I don't know. Everybody knows what that is.
it was a video game. So I had all the friends that played the video games, but they of course didn't play basketball.
Yeah.
Of course, all my basketball friends played NBA Live.
Yeah.
So there was these small connections that started to bridge between the one group of friends and the other group of friends.
Yeah.
Then it was kind of like the basketball players were like, so tell me a little bit more about this Yu-Gi-Oh. But don't tell me a lot. I just kind of want to know how this works. And I'm like, cool, let's go ahead and play. And then probably shouldn't have been doing this way back when, but we would play like for like $1, $2, like that type of thing.
Nah, you wasn't supposed to be doing that.
But it started like, wait, did you just spend like $2 off playing? And I was like, yeah. It's like, really? Teach me more.
Money is
But aside from that, it was like we started finding those common grounds that brought these two parallels together. And especially like movies, Star Wars. All the basketball like, yo, we want to see that Star Wars. I'm like, I'm actually.
Now hold on. Sound like you're talking about the prequels.
Yes,
We don't talk about
the prequels.
We don't do the prequels. I don't know what you're talking about.
And like, so that was one of those things where like everyone talked about Star Wars. I was fortunate enough when we did all these type of fundraisers and everything. I sold a whole bunch, so I got to go to little parties and things that they had. But my mom was like, well, how about this? How about instead of going to the party, I'll take you to see Star Wars? So when I told my friends, they're like, yeah, I'm not staying for that. I'm going to see Star Wars. Like, wait, what? How are you
Leaving the party to go to Star Wars.
I'm leaving the party to go see Star Wars. And yeah, that was the thing.
No.
Yeah.
Was anybody up here ever bullied? Stephen, were you bullied?
Yeah, tremendously.
So I'm gonna listen, so we're gonna talk about that because, stand up?
I was
Stand up for a second. I mean, hold on, we just. Somebody bullied you? Alright, okay. So talk to me about what that is, because I wouldn't have.
Well, so I have a question for you as well, because I know you're a buff as well. So just listening to what everybody was saying, kind of, it caused me to remember something as well, and I want to kind of connect the dots here with everybody in the room. So for me, I was bullied because I equate being a geek and knowing a lot about what you love that's not mainstream as being underground. So anime, comic books, all of that stuff was underground before it was mainstream. So it didn't become a talking point where you don't get beat up until like the PlayStation came out with like the Spider-Man game,
Yeah.
or Star Wars game as well, because that kind of forced the people that didn't know about it to learn more about who's, you know, the Skywalker family was, or anime as well, because a lot of that, like a lot of people don't understand, and I swear to God that Speed Racer drove the first prototype Honda, and that needs to be a t-shirt. At the time, that was early anime now. You know? I couldn't brag about it because you get punched in the face, but still, you loved it nonetheless.
Yeah.
But it was more so whatever the population was into, and comic books wasn't it. So it was a secret society for me,
Sure.
where you ended up having to fight or defend your opinion.
Anybody out here get bullied? A lot of it. There's a lot of it. Are you finding that still happens in some capacity? No. Is that because you're adults now?
Well, I'm a middle school teacher, so
Okay.
I actually like witness this all the time.
Sure.
That's not what kids get bullied for now.
Okay.
It's not this stuff. What happens is that somebody said something to something and it created beef.
Sure.
And that's like the only time fights and stuff like that happen. But like having knowledge about something or like being geeky, because like the MCU made Marvel cool.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
Like Batman Begins made DC way cooler than it had been, right?
Sure.
Because the animated shows were still like nerdy back in the day.
Right.
So like these things aren't as like, they're not really getting beat up for it anymore.
Yeah.
But what I do notice, because I'm a female as well, clearly, but but for like me growing up and still now, it's hard for females to be included in these groups because they're like, oh, you don't know everything. So clearly you're not a real fan because you're a woman and you can't have opinions. And so that is like still the problem, but like just liking this stuff isn't really the problem, especially among like middle school.
I think there's a lot of change that's happened. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Mentioned, for me, and I'm very surprised with this because I have a background in forensic sciences. And,
As does she. She just got her degree in forensic
And I worked in a forensic laboratory. I'm like, oh, wow, a bunch of science, people. And the thing was, before I did this job, I was in the Army. So I actually...
Thank you for your service.
So I entered the field a little bit later.
Yeah.
So I was working with people who were my peers, who were like 10 years younger than me. Even my supervisor was like a few years younger than me. And they were like, okay, this is a professional place. And I'm like, I was like, we're doing work, we're okay, we can have a little fun. And then I would sit there and go on rants about stuff and make jokes. And they'd be like, this is a professional place. And then they would actually start patronizing me. These were like younger people. They basically, they were looking at me like, who's this immature person? She's so older than us. And she's sitting here spewing all of this cartoon stuff because, to me, they were like, normal, because they did their, they were into the science and everything, but, the girls I worked with, they would talk about makeup, the old boy bands they used to listen to.
Sure.
And all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's good. I'm like, I'm not into that, but they thought it was wrong of me to be into, things, geeky things in my life. And
I think, again, like, another one of the reasons why we started doing this panel is because we've watched pop culture grow the things that we love in a way where so much more of it is socially acceptable. And it is cool to know these things. Like, there was a time, as big of a Spider-Man fan as I am, there was a time where, like, you couldn't go into, like, a Target or Walmart and find a Spider-Man shirt, or a Captain America shirt, or a Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
realistically, as a lover of pop culture and as a parent, like all of my kids are girls, right? My youngest is there, the oldest is here, the middle one's not here, but we talk makeup. We do primers and eyeliners, right? And we put your mask down. Let's see what we do today. Oh yeah. And here's the thing. Now, if you're into makeup, you can find palettes that are specifically for Nightmare Before Christmas. You can find a Captain Marvel palette. Trust me, there are Spider-Man palettes. I thought about buying my thing. There are now, let me show you something. These shoes,
I'm sorry.
I want y'all to know this how she treats me.
Every day.
Every day. These shoes are covered in comic books. Black and white comic book, old comic book. But here's the thing. They're Coach. And I would never. I mean, I've been in Coach shops before. We shop for purses. Not we. But clutches. No. The kind of companies that would never consider the kind of stuff that we were into are into it. Because there's money in it.
Because we're in charge now.
Yeah.
We are in charge now. Right?
The space we grew up on are now is what's popular now. We're making those decisions in the offices and stuff like that now.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like I think there's a thing that's happened because it's a weird thing. Have you ever seen someone make fun of somebody for something that, they like, right?
Mhm.
And then it gets accepted throughout their social circle, and suddenly that same person that was making fun of it is now, oh man, this is really cool.
A fan of it.
Right, and the person that made fun of, there's a bit of salt.
Are you looking at me like that in a K-pop reference? Because it feels like...
Because let me tell you, I was into it 2012 and then 2014, and I've been into it for years now.
Here we go.
I've been in Army for 7 years. Thank you very much. I'm a baby stay, a baby fantasy. And now all of a sudden my cousins are into it, my sister's into it, and she got her. That didn't get when I was younger. But it's fine, but like it is, especially, at least for me, one of my geekdoms is K-pop. I love it. It's so fun to me. And that is something that is absolutely blowing up and taking the entire world by storm. And it is one of the really big things that is being forced to be accepted, but not actually being accepted. It doesn't, my bag is a reference to a song by a member of BTS. I have a member of Monsta X on here. I have a member of SF9 on here. I've got light stick things on my keychain. And now we have undercover merch that is so nice to be able to have, where you can kind of have it and not have everybody know, which I think is cool sometimes though.
Sure.
It's not about not being
Sure.
comfortable, it's just about like, this is my world. If you know, you know. And I think that that's really cool.
Yeah.
So if you're let's say you're that person, and now you see the same people that were saying it wasn't cool, now saying it's cool. I think what's happening, like what you guys are talking about, where it's like, and I don't know if there's a solution, an easy solution, especially for women wanting to be a part of it and somehow getting that. I honestly understand why guys would push back and say, because you gotta understand, ladies, listen, when you have been into geek culture for so long and you've been turned down from dates, you've been turned down and called childish, you still watch cartoons, you playing that game.
And you hear the experience?
Like, I was married for 14 years. I got lucky. The woman I married was an artist. She bought me an MMO, but then, within a few years regretted it. But the point is, it's like, once you've been on the receiving end of being, you're pressured for having these interests, and suddenly, oh, now you like it. When you see someone come in and they're on the surface level of interest, they're watching the Avengers movie, right? And then you have somebody that's read Thor since, they were 7.
Right.
And then someone's like, oh man, I love Thor. You don't know Thor.
Right.
You don't know anything about you. That's where I don't want to say elitist, but it's like you feel that offense to say, you're just posing, man.
Yeah.
Stop wearing that shirt. You don't know
Yeah.
anything about it.
It's a little bit of gatekeeping.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
And I think that's what's happening with women
Steph.
because
So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to go straight into what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
Because I support it. I got shot down for my Spider-Man underoos. And I like them underoos. I wanted the underoos. You get shot down. Even your relatives, they go, what are those?
What are you doing? Exactly. That's a real thing. That's a real thing.
Spider-Man.
I want to talk about like a moment of revelation for me. That kind of helped me feel way better about what I love and how I do what I do. As you can probably tell, because you've heard it from people, like, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. There's Spider-Man crap everywhere in my house.
Understatement.
You done? You done? It's so far that like, but I don't have like a Spider-Man tattoo. I don't have a full body suit. Like there are people who come here, they cosplay, and they got the full suit and mask and whatever, right? And here's the thing. They don't love it more than I do. I don't necessarily love it more than they do. We just celebrate our fandoms differently. And that's perfectly okay. You don't have to wear a shirt or a hat that says you love it, but when you do, and that person who knows, when you walk past them, and you're like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's a big deal, and it lets you feel good. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say that I don't care how old I am. I'm 37 years old, and I love toys.
Right.
Like like Transformers or Voltron or the Megazord from Power Warriors or any kind of robot toys.
My man. You should.
Raise your hand.
You should.
Yeah.
You love toys? I like my toy people.
Megazords.
They're doing it with
Most of my toys are Spider-Man. I know that.
They're doing it with the Nintendo shirts. You see those naming shirts now?
Yeah.
Classically trained. As soon as I saw the hat, and I think I was in Target or Walmart, I'm like, give me that one. Oh, you got the shirts? Give me that. I was there when Nintendo came out, right?
Yeah.
So whoever made those shirts knew to speak to
Sure.
that generation. Classically trained. You can't just buy the shirt, bro, if you wasn't classically trained. If you didn't like Nintendo, and still wear the shirt, but you know, I feel like you're lying if you say you're classically trained.
I'm an elitist. I started playing games with one button.
You don't know about going to the concerts and
Nah, not at all. Yes, sir.
One thing was, like when I realized when I grew up that I could buy things with my own money. Before my parents were like, no, you can't buy that. And then I was just like, I can buy all the top cars that I want when I was a kid. And like that light bulb, like, no one's gonna stop me, eBay.
They are happy to take that money. Yes, sir.
No, I was just gonna say also, like, I remember when I was a kid getting an allowance, like, I saved up my money, bought a Sega Genesis, and every couple of weeks, using my allowance, like, oh, more Sega.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, listen. Yes.
I mean, right now, when we're talking about personal experience, I feel pride going into a comic book store, and most of the time I'm the only woman. And I've had a lot of times where guys have come up to me and say, you don't know what you're talking about, it's either your way or the highway, I don't know why you're here, and I still show up just to prove a point and tell them they're wrong.
Which is okay. That's okay. That's okay.
Well, I don't do that, but
Yeah.
I got it for the
You
book.
said earlier about money. When do you think we'll move on from video games to moral panic? Sandy Hook most recently.
There's a moral panic.
Blaming for everything.
I mean, realistically, I don't know if we'll ever get away from blaming something in pop culture that somebody doesn't understand until the people who grew up playing those games are the ones who are making the rules. That's what's changing everything, and that's what's happening now, right? The people who grew up on it are the ones who are beginning to. We are voting for people who play video games now. We are voting for people who have been reading comic books and watching those things from day one, right? And so now we have people that speak our language and understand it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I want to speak to the Saul. You know, for me, so I'm a bit younger. You know, I was born in '95, so I still watched some Saturday morning cartoons. I still had VHSs, but you know, it was kind of like, hey, like the last one out of the '90s, turn out the lights. Like that was that was me, you know. And for me, like, I'm a proud man. That's not necessarily a compliment to myself.
Sure.
You know, like it can get, you know, got some bad times and good times.
Yeah.
But one of my things is like, if I'm doing something, and you're telling me like you're doing that, or making fun of me, like I'll do it in front of you just to spite you. Because that's just like, I'll just show you how much I don't care, you know? And the thing, I think what I realized is that became a part of my identity, that became a part of my geekiness after a while. Just the fact it was like a bit empowering, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, as it's changed, you know, I think it's important to celebrate how the community is growing out, become more accepted. But I also understand that, like, I feel like it almost gives you a little bit, at least me, like a little bit of an existential crisis, because like I'm built to push back, you know? And that was
Sure. It's in your DNA.
Which was empowering to me, and now it's changed. It's just like coming to recognize it.
Yeah. Here's what I want to do. We got to get ready to get out of here. They keep coming in going, you only got a minute. Here's what I want to do. Everybody will stand up. We're going to take a quick picture. Everybody in the room, right? He's going to take the selfie. I'm going to get down. I'm short, so I'm going to get down here.
Go down there?
Y'all
Come down. How we doing this?
Everybody squeeze in. Nah, let him. Y'all stay up there.
Oh, okay, very good.
Y'all just squeeze in. Listen, like not like you know, like don't overdo it because it's social distancing. Don't make people feel sick or whatever. But I'm short, so I had to get in here like this. Hey, listen. Everybody say, being comfortable being a geek. Being comfortable being a geek. Y'all are awesome. Y'all are awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, listen, check us out, follow us at Loading Snacks across all social media. We here for y'all, man. If you got something you want to talk about, something you want to get off your chest, come see us.
All you gotta do is reach out.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Loading Snacks.